Armenia, a land of ancient history and breathtaking mountains, is a place where stories of the past linger like whispers carried on the wind. Among its many legends, one has always stood out to me, a tale about an unmarked monastery hidden deep in the Gegama Mountains. They say it was cursed, abandoned centuries ago after a tragedy so dark that even its name was erased from memory. I am not a superstitious man, but as an archaeologist, such stories always intrigued me. That's how I found myself trekking through the rugged terrain of Armenia, determined to uncover the truth about the lost monastery. The journey began in Yerevan, where I met my guide, Aram, a stoic local who knew the mountains well. Aram was hesitant when I mentioned the monastery. "Why do you want to go there?" he asked, his thick brows furrowing. "I'm chasing history," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. He sighed. "That place isn't history. It's a warning." Still, Aram agreed to take me. The trip required days of hiking through treacherous paths, the landscape growing wilder and more untamed the farther we went. By the third day the air grew colder, and an uneasy silence settled over the mountains, broken only by the crunch of our boots on the rocky ground. On the evening of the fourth day we reached the ruins. The monastery loomed before us, half buried in snow and shadow. Its crumbling walls were covered in dark, twisting vines, and the heavy wooden door hung ajar. Aram refused to go any closer. "This is where I leave you," he said, his voice low. "If you're smart, you'll turn back now." I thanked him, though I had no intention of leaving. As he disappeared down the trail, I turned my attention to the monastery. The setting sun bathed the ruins in an eerie orange glow, casting long shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the faint scent of decay. The walls were adorned with faded frescoes of saints, their faces worn away by time. I felt a chill, not from the cold but from the oppressive silence that seemed to press against my ears. As I explored, I found a narrow staircase leading to the lower levels. The stone steps spiraled downward, the darkness below impenetrable. Using my flashlight, I descended cautiously, each step echoing unnervingly. At the bottom, I discovered a large circular chamber. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, rows of stone figures with hollow eyes and open mouths, as if frozen mid-scream. At the center of the room stood an altar, blackened and cracked, surrounded by piles of bones. I felt a sudden heaviness in the air, as if the room itself was alive and aware of my presence. My flashlight flickered, plunging the chamber into darkness for a moment. When the beam returned, the shadows seemed to have shifted, the hollow-eyed statues appearing closer. A faint whisper broke the silence. At first I thought it was the wind, but the sound grew clearer, forming words I couldn't understand. The whispering seemed to come from all around me, echoing off the walls. I stepped closer to the altar, my heart pounding. That's when I noticed a small, weathered book lying atop it, its leather cover cracked and stained. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The text inside was written in an ancient Armenian script. Though I couldn't read it, the illustrations were enough to send a shiver down my spine, grotesque depictions of rituals, shadowy figures with elongated limbs, and a monstrous being rising from the earth. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The carvings on the walls seemed to writhe, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. I stumbled backward, dropping the book. A deafening crash echoed through the chamber, and the ground shook violently. The whispers turned into screams and the air grew icy. I bolted for the staircase, my flashlight flickering madly. As I climbed, I felt something brushing against my back, cold and clammy like fingers reaching out of the darkness. I didn't dare look behind me. When I finally burst into the open air, the sun had set, and the stars offered little comfort. The ruins seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, the shadows moving as if alive. I ran through the mountains, the path barely visible in the moonlight. The whispers followed me, growing louder with every step. At one point I tripped, falling hard onto the rocky ground. As I scrambled to my feet, I saw them, shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. They moved slowly, deliberately, their twisted forms unnatural and wrong. I screamed and ran, my legs burning with exertion. When I finally reached the edge of the forest, the whispers stopped. The figures were gone. I returned to Yerevan the next day, shaken and exhausted. Aram refused to speak to me, his face pale when he saw me. "Did you touch anything?" he asked finally. I lied, saying no. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me back. Weeks passed and I tried to forget about the monastery. But the whispers returned, haunting me at night. They grew louder, more insistent, until I could no longer sleep. The hollow-eyed figures appeared in my dreams, their mouths moving silently as they pointed to the book I had taken. Now as I write this, the whispers have become unbearable. The shadows in my apartment move on their own, and I feel their eyes watching me. I don't know what will happen when they finally reach me, but I fear I won't live to tell the tale. If you ever hear of the lost monastery in the Gegama Mountains, heed this warning: stay away. Some history is meant to remain buried.